Hey guys! So let's talk about the Canterbury Tales. More specifically, today we're going to discuss two characters that seem to have catched everyone's attention in the prologue. That's right. We're going to talk about the Friar and the wife of Bath. Because chivalry was such an important ideal in the Middle Ages, we're going to start out with the woman of the hour, the wife of Bath. We first need to talk about one very critical physical aspect that was not very discussed in the text, and it's kind of important to understand what kind of a character we're dealing with. The gap teeth. See, in the Middle Ages, the gap was formerly known as the diorama, which at the time was actually a symbol of lust. Odd. I know. And considering we see that this woman has been widowed several times, has the gap in her teeth, I kind of start to wonder what kind of character she is. But the real question is, what was it like to be a woman in the Middle Ages? During the Middle Ages, the church actually started to accept that women have souls and that they were going to have the capability to go through redemption, which means to be saved from their sins. Shocker, I know. All women are unholy or something like that. Being a woman was actually considered dangerous to the celibate clergy. That basically means that women were viewed as toxic objects. However, when it came to marriage, monogamy was like the golden rule, and divorce was, well, impossible. It didn't exist at the time. Knowing that divorce is not something that existed at the time, we have to conclude that the wife of Bath is a pretty scary widower. She's gone through quite a few husbands. So this begs the question, what happens to a widower in the Middle Ages? Well, actually, women who were widowed wound up better off than most women, because once their husband died, they inherited that land. Meaning that, in the end, they really didn't need to remarry unless they wanted to. Which begs the question, what was the church's views on remarriage? Because the church promoted celibacy, they actually really tried to discourage remarriage. Unless one was incapable of chastity. All of her marriages were conducted by the church. Speaking of the church, let's talk about the friar. Obviously, from what we've read so far, the Canterbury Tales haven't really heard so much great stuff about the friar. Kinda seems like a very sketchy guy. But we have to realize that Chaucer isn't exactly giving us what a real friar would be like. In fact, a friar, or a frater, as they would say in Latin, literally means brother. Therefore, all the friars belong to a sort of brotherhood, I guess you could say. A brotherhood of beggars. What was a friar? A friar was a member of a religious begging community who lived in urban areas, unlike monks who preferred the country because they could be away from society that way. You see, an urban outlet was actually ideal for friars because what they would do is they'd go and they'd preach the gospel and they'd help serve the church in these places that were a little bit poor. What was a friar's main goal? A friar's main goal was to help others realize that they needed to place an emphasis on the life of penance. Meaning that they needed to dedicate their life to loving God, to loving their neighbors, to renouncing sin, and turning towards God through acts of charity and forgiveness and compassion. One of the most surprising questions, were friars effective? Yes, they actually were. Because of friars, many universities in Paris, Oxford, Cambridge, and so many other places rose because of the spread of theology. And it was all sparked because of friars. It's kind of amazing when you think about it.